Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. I'm out here in the workshop and I got the floor swept, which it's been a big effort to get to the point where I can sweep the floor because the truck is not in here now. I still have one more task to do on the truck, but I can do that tomorrow. I don't need to do it tonight. It's already 12:15, midnight, so it's clear on into Friday. But I thought I'd take a few minutes and just relax and talk. I was writing answers to some comments earlier today, and it reminded me of a few stories, and I thought, well, I don't think I've told these. If I have, I apologize. Skip on. There's probably something in the video that you haven't heard of yet. We were talking about woodchucks. Tree Carcass Mangler and I were going back and forth about woodchucks being destructive and what they could do. When I lived over in Quincy, we didn't have woodchucks. We had muskrats. My wife's friend decided that she wanted to get married in the backyard at our house. Now, it was a very nice thing. And Lydia wanted to have an arrangement made, so she decided that she wanted to have a rose arbor in the backyard. Well, we didn't have a rose arbor. So I took some boards that I had in the workshop, well, in the garage. Didn't have a workshop at the time. I had a bench in one corner of the two-car garage. I took the wood that I had stored there and my little Black & Decker 110 volt 7 1/4 inch plastic bodied circular saw and set it up to work as a table saw, clamped it to a board and set it up so the blade came up through the board so I could cut wood, because I needed to make I guess you'd call them slats. So I took the 2x4s that I had stacked in the corner and I made a 4-post arrangement for an arbor. We had a wellhead that was out in the backyard. It stuck up out of the ground about that big. It was a 4-inch piece of galvanized pipe. Pretty much standard wellhead for out in the country. And Lydia didn't want to have that showing. So that was the idea behind having a rose arbor. I didn't understand that. I would have mentioned that there were other places to have as a backdrop, but she wanted to have it there. I think she really just wanted to cover up the well pipe. In any case, I set up a framework and put the slats around it and made it into a arbor with 2 bench seats, one on either side, and painted it white and went down to the let's see, where did I go? I went to the greenhouse, Night Search greenhouse, and bought roses, and because they had tall roses, because we were doing this kind of with a slap and a bang. We were told that she wanted to have the wedding in our house and it was going to be that summer. Trying to grow a rose garden of any size in that amount of time was going to be difficult. So I ended up buying tall roses, much more expensive. In any case, I planted them around the arbor, and the wedding went off without a hitch, and everybody was happy, and it was a great time, and we all had a very nice time around the rose arbor, and had everybody's family down, and it was quite the deal. Well, about the next month, I noticed that the arbor was sitting crooked. And I thought, I wonder what that's for, why that's doing that. So I went out and checked, and the arbor was sinking on the north side. Well, what would make the arbor sink? Well, there was a muskrat that had tunneled underneath the bank of the pond, which was about 12 foot away from where the arbor sat. And I don't know why, but he tunneled underneath that arbor. Well, when you tunnel under an arbor and it weakens, that means the post goes down. So the animal wants to have that post out of the way, so it digs a bigger hole and the post goes further. Anyways, I ended up having to brace the arbor so that it would stop sinking. And I tried chasing away the muskrat, and I didn't have any luck with it. We had a dog named Homer. And Homer was a great dog. He's my favorite dog of all the dogs that I've had in my whole life. And that's quite a few. Homer was fearless. Had no problem going after anything that I told him to. He didn't bother kids, he didn't bother other dogs, he didn't bother anything unless I said, get him. Or if something was bothering Lydia, Homer was going to defend her, at any cost. So I was in the garage, and Lydia was out mowing the yard on the riding lawnmower. And I heard her yelling. And Homer happened to be in the garage with me, and he took off. And I came around the side of the house, and Lydia was headed across the yard, chasing the muskrat with the lawnmower. Well, the muskrat was staying ahead of her pretty well, because the lawnmower only goes so fast, And Homer took off like a bullet. We had a little garden out by the cottonwood tree that had irises in it and some other plants. And the irises always grew up real thick. So the muskrat ducked into the irises. And Homer went over, and he's standing outside the garden, because he knew he wasn't supposed to go in the garden. And he barked at the muskrat. Then he stuck his head in we had a little stone ring around the garden. He stuck his head in to the irises over the top of the stones, and I heard a yip. The muskrat grabbed him by the nose. Just a little mark. Had a pink mark on his nose. This comes up in the story again later. Because he had a little black nose, a little brown dog. His Cocker Spaniel looked to be Irish Setter, Heinz 57. But he was a great little dog. Well, he reached in there, grabbed a hold of that muskrat by the neck, and shook it and flung it. Well, when he flung it, he was about 20 feet away from the pond. And the woodchuck flew through the air and landed in the pond about 5 foot away from the shore. Well, Homer's favorite thing to do was to chase a frisbee. And I would throw the frisbee out in the yard, and then he would get hot and tired, and he would go get a drink out of the pond. And he would take that frisbee with him, and he would drop the frisbee in the water, because it floated. And he would get his drink, grab the frisbee up, come back over and hand me the frisbee to toss again. So he was not afraid of the water, and he knew exactly what he could do in the water. If I was out hitting golf balls, first time he tried it, he was chasing golf balls. He tried to catch one, actually did catch it right off the club, about 5 foot in front of me. Just came running across and snatched it out of the air. And I heard it click on his teeth, and I thought, oh man, that had to hurt, because I was chipping with an 8-iron. It wasn't like I was driving or anything. But still, it was going pretty good clip. I got him finally to go out in the yard and wait. I did a fake swing, practice swing, so that he thought I was going to hit the ball, and he took off out in the yard because he wanted to go out and catch it. That was the idea. He wanted to catch it out of the air, just like he did the frisbee. Must have been part bird dog, huh? So anyways, I hit the golf ball out into the yard a few times, and he he decided he was getting hot and tired and thirsty, so he went over to the pond and walked out into the pond and dropped the golf ball, just thinking it was going to act just like a frisbee. So he got his drink of water, and I could see him. I was watching him. And I saw him looking around like, where'd the golf ball go? Oh, it must have sank. So he stuck his head down in the water, and he's down under the water for like 10, 15 seconds, comes up with a golf ball in his mouth. Last time he tried that, though, from then on he dropped the golf ball by the shore and went out into the pond to get his drink. So anyways, back to the woodchuck, or to the muskrat. Muskrat flew out into the pond, and Homer went right after it, just off the bank and out into the pond. I was a little worried because muskrats are pretty good size, you know, they're 10, 15 pounds, and if they latch onto you while you're swimming, they can drown you. A dog, anyways. Probably couldn't do anything to me, but they could latch onto the dog and cause a real problem. Homer weighed maybe 30 pounds, so he had some weight on the thing, but still, I wasn't happy, and I was trying to get him to come up to the shore. So finally he gave up. He swam around for probably 5 minutes trying to find that woodchuck, or muskrat, sticking his head under the water like it was a golf ball that he was hunting for. Finally got him up onto the shore, and that was the last I ever saw of that muskrat. I don't know if Homer killed it by snapping its neck. That's what they usually do. They grab him by the head and they shake the body and break the neck. And then he just happened to fling it hard enough it went out in the water. So no more problems with the arbor. No more muskrat in the pond. Either that or else Homer went out later and found him. In any case, so the muskrat was gone. And that's the story of the muskrat over in Quincy. Well, after we sold the house in Quincy, we ended up buying the house over in Union City, where the original old Sneelock's workshop is. Still, the building's still there. It's not old Sneelock's workshop anymore because I brought the sign over here because it's going to be on the outside of this building, next to the man door on the side. In any case, Homer went with us over to Union City, and he was getting rather old, and he eventually passed. And we didn't have a dog for a while. We couldn't find a dog to match Homer's, and you know how hard it is to just replace a dog. So we didn't have a dog. And we were surrounded by cornfields and hayfields. Hayfield on the east and south side, the road on the north side of the house, and a cornfield, soybean field on the west side of the house. So we had a lot of animals going back and forth. And the ground, it would be 2 fields over, was set aside. So you couldn't hunt there. Deer loved it. The guy, his name was Horton. He owned the property and leased out the hunting rights so that a group who didn't want hunting to happen anymore bought the hunting rights and just posted as no hunting. So anyways, lots of wild animals over there. Woodchucks, chipmunks, squirrels, coyotes, deer, you name it, they were there. Well, time went on, and woodchucks were everywhere. They were digging underneath my barn. When I moved in and cleaned out the barn, which took a long time, barn was 60 by 60, and the hay mow was full of hay, and took a long time to clean everything out. There was a lot of animals in there. Racoons were living in the hay mow, and I had to go up there with a respirator to clean up all the junk because there was so much dust. And raccoons have a disease that it's a virus that gets into your brain. I believe it's a virus. But anyways, it causes serious problems. So I wore a respirator, and I had a friend of mine come over, and we cleaned out a lot of loose hay in the hay mow and burned it in big piles. We had a pile about 10 feet high that we set off 4 or 5 times. We would load the hay into the truck out of the door on the side of the hay mow and shovel it out into the pile back in the backyard, and then we'd set it on fire and sit around the fire. Lydia and I and my friend would sit around the fire and wait for it to burn down. Then the next day we'd do it over again. So anyways, as I was going through the barn, I noticed that there were woodchuck holes in the barn and under the foundation. In the barn, at first didn't bother me, but then I noticed that they were digging in and making the foundation unsupported, which is not good. So I started trying to chase them out, and I set traps. We had muskrat traps, which don't work with woodchucks. You got to have something that kills them. They've got to die when the trap catches them, because what they'll do is they'll just pull the trap along with them. The first trap that I set, they pulled out a 2-foot stake and drug it into the hole, because I could see the stake had gotten crossways into the hole, and they're set. There wasn't any woodchuck in the trap. Evidently he either chewed himself free or pulled himself free from the trap, because it was just a little spring muskrat trap. So I bought a live trap and tried to catch them in a live trap, thinking that, well, at least that way I'd have them and they wouldn't be able to get out. And I never did catch anything in the live trap. They didn't want to go in there. Raccoons? Cats? Yeah, you catch a cat in there, because for raccoons and woodchucks, cat food works really good. Also lets you catch cats and raccoons and skunks. Never caught a skunk, but I was always concerned that I was going to. In any case, on about the woodchucks. So I had a lot of woodchucks, and I was shooting them and trying to flood them out and doing all kinds of things. Well, on the back side of the workshop, I had a lean-to shed. It was on the east end. You can see it in the picture at the beginning and end of the video. When I moved in, that was pretty much just a roof. It had a sheet metal roof, and the sheet metal roof was holding up quite well. It had a timber frame, not like a heavy barn, more like 4x4s. It had the corners sitting on rocks, so it was up off the ground. But the siding had rotted away about 2 feet up, because it was touching dirt. And whenever you have boards touching dirt, the insects get to it. And this barn was built, well, the workshop, at the time it was the hog barn, when they first built it, was built in 1911. It was written on the wall. But the walls had touched the dirt, because the foundation of the building was just sitting on stones. The corner posts were sitting on stones, and there was just some boards going around the outside, and the siding was put on vertically on the walls. So about that far up from the ground, the siding was pretty bad. It was eaten away and kind of dried out and splintered and gone, because when wood touches ground, bugs come in. So I decided I wanted to turn that into the blacksmith shop. Well, the blacksmith shop had a dirt floor, and as I was cleaning the building out, because it had a bunch of stuff in it, when we moved in, and as I was raking the floor, because it was a dirt floor, and I was raking it with a garden rake, I kept picking up all kinds of iron, plowshares, spring-tooth harrow tines, bits and pieces of tractors, shovel handles, pitchforks, rake heads, just all kinds of iron pieces, because the wooden handles rotted away when they laid on the ground, but the iron was still there. Might have a stub of wooden handle in it, but it was still there. So I picked up all this stuff and I piled it up, and later years I put handles on most of the hand tools, and I actually used the plowshares, but that's another story. So woodchucks had dug holes in all the around all the foundations, but there wasn't any foundation underneath this building. So they dug a hole in the center of the floor, because it was a nice, safe place that things couldn't get into their hole because the building was around it. Woodchucks like to do that. They dig under trees, they dig under rocks, they dig under foundations, thinking that, well, things can't dig them out. So I had a huge woodchuck hole in the center of the building. It was about that big around. And woodchucks dig the dirt out, throw it around in a pile, so I had this cone-shaped mound in the center of the building. That was part of what buried the shovel handles and things. So I set about trying to scare away the woodchuck. I filled in the hole. He dug it back out. And I tried all kinds of things, pouring things in there, ammonia, bleach. Didn't seem to bother him. He just moved the hole over a little bit, dug again. So one day I was out in the backyard and I saw a woodchuck over by the wood pile, which was against the east fence, about 25, 30 feet from the end of the what was to be the blacksmith shop, the lean-to shed. And so I went in the house and got the shotgun. Had a 12-gauge shotgun at the time. Later I got a 22, which was much better for woodchucks. Doesn't cost as much to fire a 22 shell as it does to cost to fire a 12-gauge. Even bird shot's kind of expensive, especially now. But anyways, I had this single shot 12-gauge, the old break single shot, break the breech and put the shell in, close it up, latch it, and cock the hammer and fire it at whatever you wanted to shoot. So I had a 12-gauge, and the woodchuck had retreated to the building, and he was inside that hole, looking over the edge of that cone. So I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, I bet I can get him, because I had about that much of head showing. And I had birdshot in the gun. So I took a shot at him, and he fell down in the hole or scrambled out. I couldn't tell if he fell into the hole or scrambled into the hole, but when I went in there, he was gone, down in the hole. I said, well, I probably missed him. But I had chewed up a lot of the gravel, the dirt around the edge of the hole there, right where he was at, so I knew I came awful close, but I didn't know if I killed him. Well, it turns out I hadn't. The next day I had gone to work. I was working over in Teconcha, which was 11 miles east of Union City, and I got a phone call. It was time for Ryan to go to school, and when Lydia opened the door and let Ryan out to go out and get on the bus, he had to step over a woodchuck. The woodchuck was laying on the porch right against the door, and he just stepped over the top of it and kept on going and didn't realize it was there. Lydia looked down and saw this woodchuck, and of course screamed and told Ryan to get away, and I'm sure they had a rather lively discussion before she called me. So I came home with the idea of how I was going to have to take care of this woodchuck. Well, it turns out the woodchuck, which we eventually over the years have named Old One Eye, had gotten hit in the head, and I'm sure he had some severe brain damage, and one eye was shot out. Not my intention to have any animal suffer, and I really didn't want to have that happen. I wanted him to die. So I came up to the house, and Lydia said he's behind the shrubs. We had a couple of little evergreens there underneath the sitting room window, right next to the porch. And he had gone over and was hiding behind that. So I went in the back room and I got the shotgun and put a shell in it. Put another couple of shells in my pocket. And came out. I didn't want to shoot at the house because I didn't want to hit the house with the shotgun pellets. So I wanted to chase him out of behind that evergreen. So I picked up some sticks and I was tossing sticks in there. Next thing I knew, he came out running. Well, that was the last steps he ever took. So I just popped him in the head and pretty much took him in 2 pieces. Well, then I hauled him out and buried him. He didn't want dogs or coyotes or something coming up into the yard to get him. And then I looked around the house, all the way around the workshop. You could see where this woodchuck had been going around the building, and because he couldn't see out of that eye, he was turning his head, he was following the wall of the building, and there was blood dots all the way around the base of the building. Kind of gross, sorry about that, but that's the story. He also had gone, after he went around the workshop, he went up to the house and did the same thing all the way around the base of the house. So we had to go out there with some bleach and wash off the woodchuck. Kind of an odd story, but Old One Eye became part of the lore of the Union City House and the workshop and the blacksmith shop. Well, after a while we got another dog. She had a basset hound that was a very nice dog. It just liked to howl. And it also liked to lay in the middle of the road, which, that's another story. But anyways, we got a basset hound, and he was nice enough. He didn't cause any problems, and we were going to have him because he was a castaway from somebody, and we ended up with him because I wanted another dog after Homer was gone. Well, he decided that he didn't want to live at our house anymore, so he would just walk off. I went and got him out of the middle of the hayfield. I went and got him out of the middle of the cornfield next door. I went and got him out of the cornfield 2 fields down from the house. I could see his tail sticking out of the stubble where the plants had just started, or up out of the plants where they just started growing. So I went over and got him, brought him back home. Never gave me any guff about coming back, but he just wanted to wander, and I think that's how we ended up with him to begin with. Whoever had him lost him, and he was at the shelter, and he decided he wanted to go somewhere. He was going to go. So we ended up giving him to the school bus driver that drove Ryan to school every day, and that dog rode on the bus with her. I guess that settled his need for getting around, seeing new people, because he saw new people all the time, and he got a chance to travel, and it was a good arrangement. Well, after that, we ended up went up to the Humane Society up in Battle Creek and got a black lab puppy, we thought. And it was mostly black lab. It was a nice little dog, well behaved. If you pick up a puppy and hold it upside down and it doesn't struggle, it's a submissive dog. And it was a female. I didn't want a male, I wanted a female. And so we ended up bringing home Stella. We called her Stella. And cat on a hot tin roof. Stella! Stella! Had kind of a ring to it, and hollering for your dog out across the fields using a Tennessee Williams reference is kind of, I don't know, might be pretentious, might just be cool. In any case, that was her name. Well, Stella was part black lab. You could tell by the shape of her ears and the shape of her face. But she also was part chow because she had spots on her tongue and a curled tail. The chow is a bit aggressive. Labs are wonderful, patient, working dogs that want to make you happy. Chows can be obnoxious if you don't let them have their own way. But they are one family dogs. Once they get used to having I don't know what you'd call it, a herd. It's not. It's a pack. Yeah, okay, that's it. Dogs. Once they have a pack, that pack is pretty well protected. So anyways, Stella never really bothered anybody up until she was about 2 years old. She was always nice to everyone and didn't have any problems with anybody. You didn't want to come into the yard and not you didn't want to come up and knock on the door, I should say. She didn't like that. She didn't like somebody knocking on the door. If you were in the house already, then she didn't have any problem with you, but she didn't want you bothering her door. So anyways, back to woodchucks. We had woodchucks, like I said, in the barn and all over the place, and Homer had chased off woodchucks, and what kind of dog is that? The basset hound. Basset hound never really cared about woodchucks. Well, Stella didn't bother with woodchucks. She would see them and, kind of look at them, but not bother them too much. Well, I was out in the backyard doing something near the back porch, and I saw 3 babies and a mama headed across from the barn over to the workshop. And I didn't like woodchucks. I told you I shot the old one eye. Well, I went in the house to get the shotgun, and when I went in the house, Sadie came out with me. Well, I didn't want to shoot with the dog out there, so I stood there with the shotgun just in case something happened and I needed it. But Stella went out and went up to the last of the woodchucks, the little woodchucks in the line, and sniffed at it. Well, it turned around and nipped her nose. Little pink spot on her nose, just like Homer had. She had that till the day she died. Well, that ticked her off, woke the chow, and she killed the little one and killed all 3 babies and killed the mother just about as fast as she could run from one to the other. Killed them all. I ended up burying them, and she walked around, got praised up really good for doing a good job. She was a good dog. And from then on, woodchucks didn't seem to bother too much. I had to get rid of one raccoon that was obviously sick and needed to go see God. So I did kill that one raccoon, but we didn't have to worry about any woodchucks or muskrats or anything else in the yard because Stella said, "You're not coming in my house. You're not coming in my yard. This is my yard. You don't bother me." So that was it. Well, we sold the house over in Union City and bought this place. And there was a woodchuck in the backyard here. They're just everywhere. And Sadie was our dog then. And Sadie didn't like woodchucks. She chased them. She was a hunting dog. She had been abandoned, or she had gotten away or something, because she was at a rescue. This is a youth rescue that was over north of Battle Creek. They rescued German Shepherds. People who ran the rescue thing like German Shepherds, and they also rescued young boys. What they did is they would bring a young boy there, and they would put him in charge of a dog, and the dog and the boy would take care of each other. It seemed to work pretty well. But if they had extra dogs, they would sometimes sell them. So we ended up going over there and getting Sadie, because Sadie, they called her, what'd they call her? Ladybug. They called Ladybug, and she came running over and went over to Lydia and sat at her feet and got her head petted. And after that, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. We were bringing Sadie home. So Sadie was here at the house. Good dog. Always did everything we wanted. She actually came home with us when we lived over in Union City. She was there for about 2 years before we moved over here to Richland. Well, Woodchuck was in the backyard, and Sadie chased him, and he went up into a tree. There's all these little scrub trees along the back of the property. Well, the trees are only about 20 foot tall. And Sadie was standing down there at the bottom looking up at this woodchuck. I thought, well, Mr. Woodchuck, you picked the wrong place to do this. Because I didn't want him digging underneath my house. I didn't want him digging underneath the little pole, or the little red barn that I had in the backyard. That was before I put it in the workshop here or anything else. So I took a pole and knocked him out of the tree, and he hit the ground, bounced once, came up in the air, and Sadie had him by the neck, snapped his neck, and he was dead. So she got praised pretty good about that, and good dog, good dog. And that was it with the woodchucks. No more woodchucks in this yard. Once they get the idea that a dog is here, and the dog kind of likes to kill woodchucks or anything, and they bug out. Well, Sadie was with us for about 11 years, 12 years, and we had chipmunks. Not a whole lot of chipmunks, but we had chipmunks. Kind of like what we got now. Sadie had this idea she wanted to catch chipmunks, so she chased chipmunks every time she saw one. And they were too fast for her to get somewhere and would get away. Well, one of them got the bright idea. He was going to run up the gutter pipe. And I think I made a video of Sadie getting the chipmunk out of the gutter pipe. But anyway, she ate a hole in the gutter, in the aluminum pipe that was the gutter downspout. Tore off the elbow at the bottom, and the little spout that went out in the yard to direct the water away from the house, and caught that chipmunk. And she was just so proud of herself. And she got praised again, because chipmunks, they eat everything. They get into all kinds of trouble, as evidenced by the hole in the fuel line on my pickup truck. If we had Sadie, that wouldn't have happened. But Sadie passed, and now we're looking for another dog. So anyways, that was the story of Old Sneelock's workshop and muskrats, woodchucks, and chipmunks. And especially my dogs. Loved every one of them. Miss them all. Be happy when we get it. Well, thanks for watching. It's a long story, and I hope you liked it. And if you didn't, then let me know, and I'll try to cut these back a little bit in the future. But I was out here in the workshop, and I thought, you know, I don't want to start a new project. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning now, and I probably should stop and go to bed. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.